Have you ever noticed that the moment you tell people your plans, something quietly changes inside you? You feel lighter, almost relieved, as if the journey has already begun. And yet, days later, when it is time to act, the energy is gone. The urgency has faded. The dream that once felt alive now feels distant. This is not coincidence. And it is not because you lack discipline or talent. It happens to people who care deeply about their lives and want to move forward. And it happens for a reason most people never question. We are taught that speaking our dreams makes them real, that sharing plans creates accountability, that telling others gives us motivation. But the Stoics warned against this long before modern psychology existed. They understood something uncomfortable. Words can satisfy the mind before the work is done. When you speak too early, you give your mind a sense of completion. You receive approval before effort, identity before action. The result is subtle, but powerful. The dream begins to die not because you failed, but because your energy was spent on expression instead of execution. This is not a video about superstition or manifestation. It is about cause and effect inside the human mind. Why speaking your dreams drains the force needed to build them, and why silence, when used correctly, becomes a form of strength, not weakness. The Stoics did not chase attention. They protected what was fragile until it was strong. They worked quietly and allowed results to speak when the time was right. Silence for them was not avoidance. It was discipline. It was control. If you have ever wondered why your motivation disappears after you explain your plans, or why some people seem to build extraordinary lives without announcing anything, this video will give you clarity. We will look at why dreams collapse when exposed too early, and how silence, when practiced with intention, becomes the hidden power that turns intention into reality. Stay with this, because understanding this one principle can change how you approach every goal you carry forward. What most people never stop to question is this: if speaking your dreams truly gives them power, why does motivation so often fade right after the words are spoken? And why do the people who quietly build lasting lives seem to understand something about silence that the rest of us overlook? When people hear the idea that dreams die when spoken, their first reaction is often resistance. Speaking feels harmless, even healthy. It feels like honesty, confidence, momentum. And in a social world that rewards expression, silence can look like fear or hesitation. But Stoic philosophy approaches this from a different angle. It does not ask what feels good in the moment. It asks what preserves strength over time. And when you look closely at what actually happens inside the mind when a dream is spoken too early, the pattern becomes clear. The impulse to speak a dream is deeply human. We want to be seen. We want our inner direction to be recognized by others. Saying, "I am going to change my life," or "I am building something meaningful," gives a brief sense of coherence. It organizes identity. It makes us feel less alone with our intentions. This is not vanity. It is a social instinct. The Stoics never denied this part of human nature. What they warned against was confusing this emotional relief with progress. When words provide the feeling of movement, the body often stops moving. The first reason dreams begin to die when spoken is that speech creates psychological closure. Before any real action has occurred, the mind registers completion at a symbolic level. Modern psychology would describe this as premature reward, but the Stoics understood it in simpler terms. The mind is easily satisfied by appearances. When you say out loud who you are becoming, the ego accepts the image as if it were already earned. The tension that should drive effort dissolves, and without tension, there is no sustained action. Epictetus warned his students directly about this tendency. In the Enchiridion, he advised, "Never call yourself a philosopher, and do not talk much among non-philosophers about philosophical principles. but act in accordance with them. His point was not humility as a social virtue. His point was structural. Words give the mind an escape from discipline. The moment you explain who you are trying to be, you feel as if you already are. That feeling is the enemy of becoming. This is why people often feel energized immediately after sharing a goal, but drained days later. The energy spike comes from social validation, not from commitment to effort. Praise produces a chemical reward similar to progress. The Stoics would say, the ruling faculty mistakes noise for substance. The work ahead now feels redundant because the mind has already received its payment. What should have been fuel for endurance is consumed by applause. There is a second, quieter reason dreams weaken when spoken, and it has nothing to do with laziness or lack of character. It has to do with exposure. Dreams in their early stages are fragile. They are not yet habits. They have not yet survived resistance. They exist mostly as intention, and intention cannot tolerate much external force. When you speak a dream, you expose it to reactions: curiosity, skepticism, advice, doubt, expectations. Each response adds weight. Each question pulls attention outward. Instead of refining your effort, you begin managing impressions. The dream shifts from being something you build into something you explain. Marcus Aurelius understood this danger intuitively. He did not write his meditations to inspire an audience. He wrote them to discipline himself. They were private reminders, not performances. This mattered because inner work requires an environment free from judgment. The Stoic approach to growth was inward before it was visible. The emperor who commanded legions protected his inner life with silence because he knew that attention scatters what discipline needs to consolidate. When a dream is spoken too early, it also becomes entangled with identity in an unhealthy way. Instead of being something you do, it becomes something you say about yourself. The Stoics were precise here. Identity was not a declaration. It was the accumulation of repeated actions over time. Seneca wrote that the way by instruction is long, but the way by example is effective. What he meant was that transformation is not transmitted through language. It is forged through behavior. When you speak before you act, you reverse this order. You try to wear the identity before earning it. And the mismatch creates internal resistance. This resistance often shows up as shame or avoidance, not immediately, but later. Once you have spoken a dream, you feel watched. Even if no one is actively observing you, the mind imagines an audience. Every delay now carries the weight of explanation. The task is no longer just difficult, it is exposed. Many people respond to this pressure by unconsciously withdrawing from the task itself. Not because they do not care, but because caring now feels heavier than before. Silence would have removed this friction. Words created it. There is also a Stoic concept of control that applies here very precisely. The Stoics divided life into what is within our control and what is not. Our effort, our judgment, our discipline belong to us. The reactions of others do not. When you speak a dream, you move part of its fate into the hands of what you cannot control. Even encouragement can destabilize because it shifts your focus from the work to the response. The more fragile the dream, the more dangerous this transfer becomes. A seed does not need light in its earliest stage. It needs darkness, pressure, and time. This is why the Stoics consistently emphasized action without announcement. They understood that virtue grows quietly. When Epictetus spoke about progress, he did not describe dramatic moments. He described the boring repetition of correct choices unnoticed by others. This kind of growth cannot survive early exposure because it has not yet become self-sustaining. It relies on concentration, not confidence. And concentration evaporates when the mind turns outward. Another reason dreams die when spoken is that speech invites comparison. The moment others know your intention, it enters a social hierarchy. Your progress, your pace, your methods become measured against invisible standards. Some people will be ahead. Some will appear more committed. Some will doubt you openly or subtly. None of this helps execution. The Stoics saw comparison as a corruption of purpose. The only valid metric was alignment between intention and action. Silence protects this alignment by keeping the standard internal. It is important to understand that Stoicism does not condemn speech. It condemns misplaced speech. There is a difference between sharing wisdom and advertising intention. The first comes after embodiment. The second precedes it and weakens it. When Seneca warned against living for the opinion of others, he was not attacking society. He was describing a structural error. When motivation depends on being seen, it collapses the moment. Attention shifts elsewhere. Silence restores autonomy by removing the dependency entirely. At the deepest level, dreams die when spoken because speech satisfies the ego and starves the will. The ego wants recognition now. The will needs resistance over time. These two forces do not grow together. When one is fed early, the other weakens. The Stoics chose to starve the ego deliberately, not out of self-denial, but out of strategy. They understood that real power accumulates quietly. It is built in the hours no one applauds and no one questions. This is why silence is not emptiness in Stoicism. It is containment. It is the space where effort can compound without interference. When a dream remains unspoken, it stays unfinished in the mind. That unfinished tension becomes fuel. Each day, the absence of declaration pushes you back toward the work. The dream stays alive because it has not yet been satisfied symbolically. It demands reality. So when we say that dreams die when spoken, we are not making a moral claim. We are describing a mechanism. Words give closure before completion. Exposure adds weight before strength. Identity claimed too early replaces identity earned. These forces do not destroy dreams violently. They dissolve them quietly. And unless you understand this, you may spend years wondering why motivation fades, not realizing that it was given away long before the work began. What the Stoics recognized is that if careless speech is what quietly drains the force behind your dreams, then silence is not emptiness at all, but the very structure that protects and preserves that force while real strength is still taking shape. Silence in Stoicism is often misunderstood as withdrawal or passivity, but that is not how the ancient Stoics practiced it. Silence was not the absence of action, it was the protection of action. They understood that strength does not announce itself while it is forming. It concentrates, it hardens, it waits. And this is why silence, when practiced intentionally, becomes one of the most powerful tools for turning dreams into reality. The first power of silence is that it preserves energy. Every meaningful goal requires sustained effort, not excitement, but endurance. Speaking a dream feels energizing in the short term because it releases emotional pressure, but that release comes at a cost. The Stoics believed that energy follows attention. Wherever your attention goes, your inner force follows. When you speak about what you are going to do, your attention shifts away from the work itself and toward the reaction it produces. Silence keeps attention anchored where it belongs, in the present task, not the imagined future. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself to stay with what was in front of him, to do the work of the moment without dramatizing it. He wrote about doing what nature requires here and now, without looking around for witnesses. This was not emotional detachment, it was efficiency. Silence eliminates the unnecessary expenditure of force. You stop spending energy on explanation, anticipation, and self-narration, and you redirect it back into execution. Over time, this conservation compounds. Small daily efforts sustained quietly outperform bursts of motivation fueled by words. The second power of silence is that it removes social pressure. When no one knows what you are building, you are free to move at the pace the work demands. There is no need to defend delays, no need to justify changes, no need to maintain consistency with an image you prematurely created. The Stoics were deeply aware of how destructive social expectation can be when it precedes inner stability. Seneca warned that living according to the opinions of others is a form of slavery. Silence restores freedom because it removes the audience. This freedom matters because growth is rarely linear. Progress involves mistakes, detours, and periods of doubt. When a dream is public, every deviation feels like failure. When it is private, it feels like learning. Silence creates a protected space where imperfection does not threaten identity. You are allowed to be clumsy. You are allowed to revise. You are allowed to slow down. This flexibility is essential for long-term achievement, and it only exists when the work is not exposed too early. Silence also strengthens identity, but in a very specific Stoic way. Identity in Stoicism is not something you claim, it is something you become through repeated action. Epictetus was clear on this. Do not seek to appear wise. Be wise. The appearance of progress means nothing without the substance. Silence supports this process by preventing you from borrowing identity from language. Instead of saying, "I am disciplined," you practice discipline. Instead of saying, "I am building something meaningful," you build something meaningful. Over time, the identity forms naturally without effort or announcement. This is why Stoic silence is not empty. It is active containment. It is the refusal to let language substitute for behavior. When you remove speech, the only way to feel progress is to make progress. The only way to feel pride is to earn it. This delayed gratification strengthens character because it ties emotional reward directly to effort, not intention. Seneca emphasized that the reward of virtue is virtue itself. Silence ensures that the reward system remains internal, stable, and resistant to fluctuation. Another overlooked power of silence is that it shields you from premature judgment. Not all judgment is hostile. Some comes in the form of advice, concern, or curiosity. But even well-intentioned input can destabilize a fragile plan. Every external opinion adds cognitive load. You begin evaluating not only what you should do, but how it will be perceived. This is exhausting and unnecessary at early stages. The Stoics taught selective engagement with the world. They did not isolate themselves, but they chose carefully what deserved their attention. Silence is one way of exercising that choice. Silence also trains patience, which is a core Stoic virtue. When nothing is said, there is no immediate feedback loop. You do not know how others will react because they do not yet know. You are forced to tolerate uncertainty. This builds inner stability. The Stoics believed that the ability to endure uncertainty without agitation was a mark of strength. Silence creates this training ground. By removing the quick comfort of validation, you learn to rely on your own judgment and commitment. There is also a strategic dimension to silence that the Stoics understood intuitively. Results speak more clearly than plans. When something is finished, when it has weight and form, it no longer needs explanation. The world understands outcomes, not intentions. This is why silence increases impact. When you reveal something only after it exists, it carries authority. There is no debate about whether it will happen. It already has. This alignment between word and reality builds credibility not through performance, but through consistency. Importantly, Stoic silence is not about hiding forever. It is about timing. The Stoics did not reject speech. They respected it. They believed words should emerge from reality, not precede it. Speech that follows action clarifies. Speech that precedes action weakens. Silence ensures that when you do speak, your words carry the weight of lived experience, not aspiration. Over time, practicing silence changes how you relate to your own goals. You stop chasing the emotional high of announcing and start valuing the quiet satisfaction of progress. You become less reactive, less dependent, less rushed. The work becomes more stable because it is no longer entangled with your need to be seen. This stability is what allows dreams to survive the long middle, where excitement fades and discipline must take over. The power of silence is not mystical. It is structural. It conserves energy, protects focus, removes pressure, strengthens identity, delays reward, and aligns speech with reality. Each of these effects supports the same outcome: sustained effort over time. This is why silence does not just protect dreams, it actively builds them. It creates the conditions under which intention can harden into action, and action into character. When you understand silence this way, it stops feeling like restraint and starts feeling like leverage. You are not holding yourself back. You are holding yourself together. You are allowing the work to mature without interference. And in that quiet, uninterrupted space, dreams do not fade. They deepen, they gain weight, they move steadily toward reality without needing to announce a single step along the way. Dưới đây là văn bản của bạn sau khi được thêm dấu câu, ngắt câu, xuống dòng và phân đoạn hợp lý để dễ đọc, mạch lạc và tự nhiên hơn, giữ nguyên 100% từ ngữ và nội dung gốc. But understanding silence as leverage is only the beginning. Because for the Stoics, silence was never an abstract idea. It was a discipline practiced deliberately in specific moments where restraint protected growth rather than cutting one off from life. Stoic silence is not something you adopt all at once, and it is not about withdrawing from life or cutting yourself off from others. It is a practical discipline that is applied selectively and intentionally. The Stoics were clear that wisdom is not found in extremes. It is found in correct use. And this is where many people misunderstand silence. They try to become quiet in every area and end up disconnected or rigid. That is not Stoic practice. What matters is knowing what to keep silent and when. The first practice is selective silence. Not everything deserves protection. Only what is still fragile. When a goal exists mostly as intention, it needs containment, not exposure. The Stoics would say that what is weak should not be tested by unnecessary forces. This means you do not announce plans that have not yet survived effort. You do not invite opinion into something that has not yet found its footing. You are not hiding because of fear. You are protecting because of understanding. Silence here is an act of care directed inward. This selective silence immediately changes how you relate to your goals. When no one knows what you are working on, the pressure shifts inward. You are no longer motivated by how it will look or how it will sound. You are motivated by whether you showed up today. This creates a different kind of accountability, one that is quieter but far more stable. The Stoics trusted this internal accountability because it was under their control. The second practice is action before speech. This principle runs through Stoic teaching again and again. The idea is simple but demanding. Do the work first. Let words follow only if they are necessary. When you reverse this order, you weaken resolve. When you respect it, you strengthen character. Action anchors intention in reality. Speech after action clarifies. Speech before action substitutes. Practicing this means resisting the urge to narrate your process. You stop telling people what you are becoming and let becoming take place. You accept that progress will feel invisible for a while. That invisibility is not a problem. It is the training ground. This is where discipline replaces excitement and consistency replaces inspiration. The Stoics believed that this phase is unavoidable and that trying to escape it through explanation only delays the outcome. The third practice is letting outcomes speak. This does not mean waiting for perfection. It means waiting for substance. When something has form, when it exists independently of your intention, it no longer needs justification. It does not require belief. It requires recognition. The Stoics respected results because results are honest. They cannot be argued with. They remove the need for persuasion. Living this way changes how others perceive you over time. But more importantly, it changes how you perceive yourself. You stop measuring progress by attention received and start measuring it by effort invested. This shift is subtle but profound. It replaces performance with integrity. You no longer feel the urge to convince because there is nothing to defend. The work either exists or it does not. Another key Stoic practice connected to silence is tolerance of unfinished states. The Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort without rushing to relieve it. Speaking about a dream often relieves discomfort temporarily. Silence allows it to remain. This is not cruelty toward oneself. It is discipline. The discomfort of not yet having results becomes the pressure that shapes persistence. When you remove that pressure through words, you weaken the structure that would have carried you forward. This is why silence also strengthens patience. You are no longer rushing to mark progress publicly. You allow time to do its work. You accept that growth is uneven and that some days will produce nothing visible. The Stoics valued patience not as waiting, but as staying aligned during delay. Silence supports this alignment because it removes the illusion that something must be shown for effort to be real. It is also important to understand that Stoic silence does not mean never sharing. It means sharing at the right stage, when something has matured, when it no longer depends on encouragement to survive, when it can withstand misunderstanding, then speech becomes safe, even useful. At that point, words do not replace effort. They describe it. Silence ends naturally when it is no longer needed. Practicing Stoic silence also means becoming comfortable with being underestimated. When you stop announcing plans, some people will assume you are doing nothing. The Stoics accepted this without concern. They were not interested in managing impressions. They were interested in maintaining inner order. Being underestimated removes pressure and distraction. It leaves you free to work without interference. This freedom is worth far more than early recognition. Over time, these practices begin to change your inner posture. You become less reactive, less eager to explain, less dependent on validation. You trust process over proclamation. You trust repetition over excitement. The work becomes quieter but stronger. You are no longer feeding the ego and starving the will. You are feeding the will directly through consistent action. This is the practical heart of Stoic silence. It is not about saying less for the sake of restraint. It is about saying less so that effort has room to grow. It is about choosing containment over expression until expression is supported by reality. When silence is practiced this way, it stops feeling like denial and starts feeling like precision. Each word you do not speak becomes energy you can spend where it matters. And this is how silence becomes application, not theory. It turns intention into structure, structure into habit, and habit into something solid enough to exist without explanation. When you live this way, your dreams no longer depend on being spoken to stay alive. They depend on being worked on. And that dependence is exactly what allows them to endure. If you step back now and look at the full arc, you can see that nothing here was about secrecy or fear. Your dreams were never dying because they were weak. They were dying because they were exposed before they were ready. Words gave them a sense of arrival before the journey had begun. Attention replaced effort. Identity was claimed before it was earned. And slowly, without drama, the energy that should have carried you forward leaked away. This is not a failure of character. It is a misunderstanding of how strength forms. Stoicism offers a quieter path. It does not ask you to suppress ambition. It asks you to protect it. Silence in this sense is not hiding. It is holding your work together while it grows. It is choosing containment over expression until effort has shaped something real. When you stop explaining what you are going to do and start allowing the work to speak later, you reverse the pattern. Motivation stops collapsing because it is no longer spent on words. It is invested in action. What changes most is not how others see you, but how you experience your own progress. You begin to feel grounded rather than rushed, focused rather than excited, patient rather than restless. The work becomes steadier because it no longer depends on reaction or recognition. Each day adds weight instead of noise, and over time, that weight becomes unmistakable. This is why the Stoics valued quiet discipline over loud intention. They understood that the strongest things in life do not announce themselves while they are forming. They concentrate, they endure, and when they finally appear, they do not need explanation. They simply stand. Here is the Stoic truth to carry with you. What you protect in silence, you give a chance to become real. As you move forward, take a moment to reflect. What is one goal you have been explaining instead of building? What would change if you let it remain unfinished in words but active in effort this time? If you feel it, say it quietly to yourself or leave it here as a reminder. I build in silence. Choose restraint over display. Choose repetition over promise. And allow your work to mature without interruption. Because when you stop spending your energy on being seen, you finally have enough left to become what you set out to be.